Senator Bernie Sanders is making his case for democratic socialism. The 2020 presidential candidate explained the ideology in a speech earlier this afternoon. He says the concept is often misunderstood, but could be the way forward for the United States.
We must recognize that in the 21st century, in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, economic rights are human rights. And that is what I mean by democratic socialism.
Edward Isaac Dovere is the Atlantic. He's with the Atlantic, and he's been covering this story. And he has a story out that's called Bernie Sanders Leans into Socialism, His Rivals Laugh. Well, Isaac joins me now from Washington. So, Isaac, I got it. Why do you think it is he's so invested in defining and defending this label of democratic socialism?
Well, this is who he is. Bernie Sanders has been a democratic socialist for 40 years, very proudly. He has never been an official member of the Democratic Party when he's run for office, except for when he briefly joined the Democratic Party to run for president in 2016. He had to register in New Hampshire as a Democrat to do that. But he has been an independent when he was in the House. He's an independent in the Senate, saying he's a democratic socialist. And he feels like that term has been misunderstood, not only about him directly, but about how it fits into the political conversation that's going on in a larger way in the United States right now.
So he addresses some of the misconceptions about democratic socialism. What does he say?
He says that there's a proud tradition of this within the Democratic Party, that he connected himself to Franklin Roosevelt, as he's done before, talking about how that was democratic socialism, about how it's thinking about economics in a way that is giving the priority to making sure that there is a fairness in his mind, turning the resources to away from the people at the wealthy end of the spectrum and towards the people at the poor end of the spectrum, so that there is more of an equality, more of what he believes is a just equality.
You know, why do you think it is the campaign chose to do this now? You know, what do you think he has to gain at this point? He hasn't really been able to break out from the group that's really supported him and his message. So is this trying to reach out to another demographic?
It's certainly trying to make clear what the contrast he has to everybody else in the field. What I did over the last couple of days, many of the presidential candidates were in Iowa over the last couple of days, and I asked as many of them as I could get to, including Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, John Delaney, John Hickenlooper, Michael Bennet, what they thought about this argument that Bernie Sanders is making here, and saying that democratic socialism is the way to go. And even among the candidates who have adopted some policy positions that you see from Bernie Sanders, there is a real reluctance to go along with democratic socialism. Elizabeth Warren kind of shook her head and laughed when I told her that Bernie Sanders was giving the speech. Kirsten Gillibrand, the senator from New York, who is one of the people who stood with Bernie Sanders about 2 months ago when he reintroduced the Medicare for All bill, said to me that she doesn't think that that's the right thing at all. Capitalism is what she believes in, and she says that what Sanders needs to do is, or what America needs to do is different from Sanders in that the system should be fixed. You should address corruption and greed, but not to change the whole way that American capitalism works.
So, you know, you talk about these Democratic contenders who kind of laughed it off when you addressed to them that he was going to do this. But the president has even taken him head on for months now, attacked this idea of socialism. Yeah. He thinks the more it's talked about, the better off he is, because he believes that most Americans don't really buy into this idea. But we saw Sanders today try to turn the tables on the president himself. I want to play that bite for you.
When Trump attacks socialism, I am reminded again of what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, and I quote, "This country has socialism for the rich, rugged individualism for the poor," end quote. And that is the difference between Donald Trump and me. He believes in corporate socialism for the rich and powerful. I believe in a democratic socialism that works for the working families of this country.
Corporate socialism for the rich and powerful. Do you think that's going to be an effective counterattack to the president?
It may be, and this is an argument that Sanders has been sounding out not only over the course of his career in his previous presidential run, but even in the last few weeks. Last week, he was in Arkansas speaking at the Walmart shareholders meeting, making an argument on behalf of the workers that they're not getting paid a living wage, and therefore many of them are on food stamps. And he says what's going on then is that Walmart, which is, of course, drawing in big profits, is able to have its wages subsidized by the federal government. That to Sanders, that seems like a great example of corporate socialism.
Edward Isaac Dovere. Isaac, thank you for joining us.